board meeting. It's essentially our workshop meeting for August 27th. We do have an agenda that was presented and I believe was updated earlier today, if I remember right.
The minutes were updated.
The minutes were updated.
And I did include information in the enrollment space section. The agenda wasn't changed.
The agenda wasn't changed. Very good. Thank you for that clarification, Josh. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. We have to do a motion and a second. A second. Any discussion? Any items to be potentially moved anywhere else? No? Good to go? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, I will then also entertain a motion to
Make a motion to recess into executive session.
Thank you.
For the purpose
Recess.
of discussing personnel, section 610.201, and legal matters 610.021, and student matters 610.201.
Thank you, Arnold. Recess was the word I was looking for. We have a motion and a second, please.
Second.
Second, roll call vote, please, Sherry.
Ms. Keller?
Aye.
Ms. Dahl?
Yes.
Mr. Lord?
Yes.
Ms. Quinn?
Aye.
Dr. Stricker?
Aye.
Very good. We shall recess for a few minutes into executive session. Welcome to our continuing board workshop meeting here for the Webster Groves School District. We welcome all comments and at the appropriate times when public comment is asked for, when we get to that agenda item. If we could, let's go ahead and start with our Pledge of Allegiance. You'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So just we have a clarification for the record. When we recessed into closed session, the motion was made based on the anticipation of both personnel and a student matter. But there was, I'm sorry?
And a legal
issue, and of which we only needed to discuss personnel. So if the board has no problem, we'll ask Sherry to amend that motion to only include the personnel items. And for the matter of public record, that is noted on our recording, that we only met on a personnel-related issues. Does anyone have a problem with that on the board? Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your indulgence.
And
as
I
we clarify
apologize for that problem. That was our fault.
Minor clerical error, and we'll handle it from there. So
I'm wondering, do we need to vote on the amendment?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion
Okay.
that we amend the motion made to go to executive session to only read that we are going to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel.
we have that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And let's do the roll call to accept that revised motion. Sherry, please.
Ms. Keller?
Aye.
Mrs. Dahl?
Yes.
Mr. Lord?
Yes.
Ms. Quinn?
Yes.
Dr. Stricker?
Aye.
Very good. So we will adjust that. Thank you, Arnold. I appreciate that. We come to our first opportunity for public comment. So if anyone from the public would like to step to the podium, and please identify yourself and where you live, and appreciate your comments. Mr. Buck, how are you this evening?
Good, how are you?
Wearing a Tulane shirt tonight. No KU?
That's where Annie is.
There you go.
This may be stuff you already know, but I did not. And in my opinion, I think the biggest challenge or problem facing the entire district is closing the achievement gap. I also think it's the single biggest opportunity for the equity in education effort. It's been going on for a long time. It's not closed. So I was very curious. So I asked a couple of questions and did some digging with some educators I know around the country, my friends, and also online. Two questions. First one was, when does the achievement gap begin? The answer is at the start of kindergarten. Second question, does the gap increase while students are in school? The answer is no. Basically, what they start, the gap that starts in kindergarten, it carries through. And kids of color may increase their academic performance, but so do the white kids, and the gap increases. It starts at kindergarten. And I find that interesting because, for example, why is that? To go full-time, 5 days a week at Ambrose is $8,500. The Goddard School is about that much. Montessori is about that much. Elaine Rossi is right up there. Annie and Sawyer, interesting enough, went to the manual preschool program for 2 years with Thomas O'Taylor when they were 3 and 4, and they went to kindergarten at Bristol Primary with Mrs. Weiner and Mrs. Moster. Okay? But the point is that we're all from white families who can afford it, but there are 500 families in Webster Grove's Rock Hill area who are families in poverty that represent about 500 kids or more. They can't afford their kids to go. So what happens? White kids spend 2 great years in preschool, early childhood development, but they all start kindergarten together, and the African American kids of color are 2 years behind, and they never catch up. So if this is true, and I think it is, what are solutions to this problem? We have to think outside the box, because if we can tackle this and somehow get all kids in this district to receive early childhood education, whatever way we figure it out, we may be able to put a significant dent in the achievement gap that has existed for at least 20 years. We need to close this thing. This may be at least a good shot to do it. Early childhood education for all kids. How can we make that happen? So, that's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Buck.
Yeah.
Additional public comments? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move on to our communications recognitions information and our correspondence log. Everyone has had that in their packet and available to you for review. If you have anything that needs to be added, please send that to Sherry and John. If you need anything more to review, please take your time to review that. Celebrations from the board. Let's go ahead and start, if we could, to my right, Ms. Keller. If you'll share any celebrations.
Sure. I went to the back-to-school picnic, and it was really wonderful up in North Webster. And my husband was with me, a teacher, and he had a chance to meet with a parent that had not had an opportunity to come meet him at the back-to-school event. So that was great. And I know that Jumpstart conferences, at least at Avery and Edgar Road, are off to a good start. And at Edgar Road, we also have the I See Me book fair going on, where they are selling multicultural and African American books into the homes and for the school as well. And last year, we were able to sell around $3,000 of multicultural and African American books around the school that went into homes around that school, and I'm really proud of that. And that I just wanted to celebrate Mrs. Wright, the librarian, again, because she donated her earnings for from the book fair back to the program, and they were able to give it to a school in need up in Nelson.
Wonderful. Very good. Joe?
I went to the first day of school at Bristol, which is the place to be if you haven't been, you should go. Because we have Mr. Senti dressed as a statesman greeting everybody. There's a coffee station for parents. There's like the bubble bus. There's a picture wall with signs you can hold. It's the real deal. It's super impressive and a lot of fun. If that doesn't make you want to go to school, I don't know what does. And I also went to, and I'm going to forget the term for this, but I went to the high school equity meeting where they had Grace Lee come and talk about the circles. What are those called?
Restorative circles.
Thank you, restorative circles. And actually we did one, and it was a really, really good, she had a facilitator from, maybe WashU, Clayton? Thank you. Anyway, it was a great meeting and really made you understand why that works and what a great thing that is that she's bringing to Hickson and hopefully the rest of the district.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Arnold?
Had an opportunity to go to Hickson's open house, which was during the day for an extended period of time prior to school, and kids got a chance to get their supplies and put them in their locker, get pictures taken, get a lot of the paperwork stuff done. I thought it was a very well organized event, and the parents and students seemed to like it a lot. Also, Ambrose had an activity where they were having the the kids come in for the very first time with their parents, and they had some food trucks there and a couple other items, so it's a very enjoyable time also for the kids to get acclimated to their new building.
Excellent. Keita?
Okay. I went to the class of 2024, that didn't even sound right, 7th grade party at the beginning of the year, and that was a very cool part. They had a video game bus, which I didn't even know existed, but they had a DJ from the high school, they had basketball, it was really quite a shindig. That was fun. I went to the Rock Hill, the new Rock Hill City Hall and Firehouse open house on the 21st. Very, very nice facility. They really did really well with the space, how they use the space to build the new facilities. We talked to some of the firehouse. We got to get into the fire truck and see the whole thing. That was great. Let's see, went to the General Turner Park with Steve and the park renaming over in North Webster on Saturday. He was bragging about how many class of 81 people were.
6, by the way. 6 of us in
Let's
attendance.
just leave that alone. I also attended the first football game this past Friday, which unfortunately we lost kind of badly, but it's the first game, so, and that's it so far. That's it for me.
Very good. I'll add too that I also attended the City of Rock Hill open house for the public safety building in the City Hall. It's really, really cool to see what they've done there, and I know that I believe the bond issue that they passed in 2016 was reaping the fruits of that labor, and it's really, really quality place. I know that Glendale is working on theirs as well, and hopefully, and I'm not sure who on the board's our Glendale rep. Christine, if you'll kind of keep us abreast of what their situation is over there and how soon they're going to have their place ready, and would love to know when they're going to have their open house as well. It might be a while yet. I think they're still in the midst of construction, but it's nice to see that as well. Keita also mentioned we had a class of 78 graduate. Brigadier General C. David Turner was the gentleman that they renamed the park for, and he was there and quite humbled, and lots of family members. It was really, really good turnout for David, if I may call him that, because he was a senior when I was a freshman. But General Turner has done some amazing things in his career, now retired and working for American Water Company. But it was a very well-attended event. Dr. Simpson spoke, Keita and I were there as well. Did I mention there were 6 1981 graduates there? He wasn't even our class. I'm just needling her a little bit. But well, that was a really, really cool event. I also want to express my thanks to all the people involved in our kickoff event, beginning of the year. I don't think we've met officially in a meeting since we had that, but the Roberts Gym, it was very well attended by members of staffs from all across the district. That's a really cool event every year, and Zach Smith as MC, his usual high energy self, and the teachers and administrators participated in some of the activities, and it was a really great way to kick off the year again. It's one of my favorite events every year. The new teacher orientation, I can tell you that we hired a lot of really, really good folks this year, and they were all so excited, not only for the events that had happened this summer in their transition in and their training, but the additional training and orientation that they had in just a few days before school started. Had so many of them come up. I had the good fortune of being on the bus tour that take them around the district, and had many of them come up again and say how happy they were of how the entire process of coming on board to the district is. They were just glowing about the efforts. They're being welcomed by staff and central office personnel here. It's just really, really nice to see those folks being excited about coming to work in the Webster Groves School District. So again, many thanks to those who were involved in making sure that those new folks got up to speed quickly. And we had many who were like, hey, the minute I could get in my room, I was ready to go and was already decorating and things like that. So good stuff, good stuff. Do we have celebrations from administrators, John?
Kathy?
Yes, I have one. We have received word that the Webster Groves High School Echo, last year's Webster Groves High School Echo newspaper has earned the George H. Gallup Award from Quill and Scroll. Quill and Scroll is the honorary society for high school journalism. Congratulations to them.
And I have a number of celebrations that I'll share in my opening of school presentation, but I did want to take a moment again just to celebrate the board, because your presence and involvement in so much at our district schools and in the community just means so much. And a number of us who are staff here have been to other places, have been employed in other places where it doesn't happen for one reason or another. And just your support of the schools, your support of me means a lot. And again, whether I'm seeing you all on the weekend at our event, or Dr. Stricker's getting on his knee greeting Luke at his first day of preschool. He didn't give him too much, but it takes a little while to warm up. But it just means a lot that you're thoughtful in such a way, and so I celebrate you guys. So thank you very much. That's it for that. We'll move into the next one.
Excellent. So we'll go into our next agenda item 5.0 for student advisors to the board.
Yeah, so very excited tonight to have both our former advisor as well as our new advisors, and wanted to start first with Joe Castleman. This past year, Joe, would you mind coming to the mic? 'Cause I'm going to ask you to say, not a speech, but you're fine. But this past year, our last 2 falls ago, it was the Board of Education that went to an MSBA conference and heard a presentation on having a student advisor to the board. And then the board at that time processed it a bit and decided to move forward and initiated a policy, and we kind of started it off. And we had 11 applicants that came forward, and a very competitive group, as was this year's. And Joe and Trinity really stood out among a great group. It was the first year that we did it last year, and we learned a lot along the way. But having students that were very thoughtful in both their words and deed, as well as and get the understand the environment that they're in, that spoke as representatives of a bigger body and not just from their own self, is huge. And especially as we're piloting something the first time, to get our students more involved and included in our processes was something we've always tried to do. But having them at board meetings and giving them a voice takes it to a completely different level. And so Joe and Trinity were kind of the pioneers with that, and with anything, those pioneers mean a whole heck of a lot. And we definitely will bring Trinity. Something must have come up back to honor her. But Joe, can't thank you enough for your willingness to be both Joe and Trinity. Joe is extremely involved, extremely active in a lot, in athletics, in academics, in the arts, through drama, through other outside things, and to give up time at Monday nights to read materials in advance is huge. So Joe, on behalf of the board, gave him a little something as well as a thank you, and so congratulations. Joe's dad, Dave, is here tonight. Joe, if you would just share just what you got from the experience, what you thought going in, what you got from the experience, and any plans as you move away from the district in 9 or 10 months maybe you're thinking about.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I really want to take the opportunity to say thank you to all you guys for this opportunity, especially Dr. Simpson, I know, for kind of helping coordinate getting this started, and with Trinity and I always being available to text you. You're very available with us and helping us work through that first year. I definitely think that I took a lot away from the meetings, even if sometimes it's about these tax budget things that I didn't really have any idea what was happening. I still found them interesting, and the MSBA, right? That is the acronym, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that conference in Jefferson City was super cool. I hope you guys get a chance to go. But I know Patrick and Jessica are going to do a really great job this year. Worked with both of them quite a bit. Patrick, with his cross country, Jessica and the drama stuff. But yeah, no, I had a good time, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity, really, most of all. I guess moving forward, the college process is upon me right now, so we are writing the application essay, and that is kind of my last step right now. Butler University is probably in my top 3, along with Valparaiso, St. Olaf, Rhodes, Truman. I got a long list. I know that's more than 3. Yeah, no, I'm very excited. I'm still, considering education or education administration. I'm not really sure. I'm taking an AP chemistry class this year to kind of see if I'm, cut out for a medical school kind of thing, which we will see how this class goes. It's really notorious, but I'm enjoying it, and honestly, I'm having a great time. I'm very thankful for all the opportunities, so thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Next, I wanted to.
Oh, no, that's right. I was going to say, and I'm sure Joe and Trinity will also be kind of getting a wrap up with John to see how we can continue to evolve this position. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
and we've talked on that too already, but
Good.
for sure. I did want to give also Jessica and Patrick just a brief moment on the mic. Again, they had a very competitive group that so they submit this application that comes with a letter of interest. I submitted to you what their letter of interest looked like. And then they interview with a group of us, which included Joe and Trinity, actually, and a few other people. But they, too, among the competitive group, rose to the top. And so we are very excited to do 2.0 of the student advisor. We've already discussed some of the changes from 1.0. But I would love for you guys just to, 30 seconds to a minute, like, why did you apply and what are you looking forward to this year? And if you could go to the mic, just so our people at home and in the audience could hear, that would be great. This is Patrick.
All right, hello.
Good evening, Patrick. How are you?
I'm good, how about yourself?
Thank you.
Well, first, I just really want to thank everybody for this opportunity. It really means a lot to me. And I'm just, really excited for, what's to come. I really wanted to do this because, one, I've gotten so much from this district community, and, moving here as a sixth grader, knowing no one, and, I've met a lot of amazing people, a lot of amazing teachers, and, it's really meant a lot to me, and, hopefully I can give a little bit of that back to hopefully make this just a fraction of a better place. But, and, also I'd, love to learn about everything, all the district workings and how it operates, and, become more of an aware citizen, so, I'm hoping to bring that as well. And, yeah, I'm really excited for what for what this will bring, and, I look forward to working with everybody and hopefully, bringing some new ideas and perspectives to the conversation.
Patrick, you're a junior this year?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Jessica?
Good evening, Jessica.
Good evening. I love saying that word. Hi, I think you already know. I'm Jessica Peterson. Thank you for having me here tonight. It is awesome, and I'm so excited for this opportunity. I kind of wanted to be here tonight because I love giving a voice to people who don't have a voice. I've made my way through Webster all my life. My sister came through here. My mom's worked at Hickson since I was 2 years old, so they're like my family, always over there. And I just always wanted to know more, go deeper into. The older I got, the more I started to realize different ins and outs of the district. And I just wanted to be able to help out and have a voice and give voice to those who don't have one. So it's really excited to be here. I have much to say. Yeah,
right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Very nice. Thank you, Jessica. And just so you guys know, the event that Joe was referring to was actually the legislative day that occurs in February that he went down to. So Dr. Simpson will be in touch with you as far as some of those kinds of events, if you're available to attend and can make your way away from class for the day. I know as juniors, this is a big year. This is a busy year, so getting away from a day sometimes makes the to-do list get a little bit longer. But we would love to have you join us at some of those events as well. So look forward to getting to know you better as well.
And I don't know if you guys have already divided up, but if one of you has tonight, one of you doesn't, it's okay to break away here soon. And I know Joe's got stuff to do at home too.
Yeah,
so.
you're welcome
But you're
to.
both welcome to stay. Absolutely.
Got anything else on that, John?
Nope.
Okay, very good. Board calendar items, just a couple quick things that I wanted to point out. One that isn't on here that we might, well, just make sure that people know is on September 6th. We have the renaming of the computer school to Dr. Henry Gibbons Junior Elementary. And that I believe begins at 5 o'clock. I mentioned something to John on Saturday when I happened to see him about making sure that our other elected officials around the area, the mayors and councils and everything, were all aware of that, and so that they are certainly welcome to attend. We would certainly like to recognize anybody that does come for that, and I know that John's already on that, but for you guys, since that's not listed here, that's September 6th. We do have a couple board meetings in September, and then just looking ahead to the annual conference. I believe everybody is all set with regards to reservations and things like that. I know that you can make a couple of changes if you need to. I know I had to make one to cut back. I'm not staying Saturday night now, but I am going to stay down as long as I can on Saturday evening to attend whatever we as a board do. And then I'm going to scoot home in the dark late that night because my daughter is in for the weekend from Nashville, and I want to spend as much time with her on Sunday as I can. So I'll burn the midnight oil getting home, hopefully on a motorcycle, which is what I usually try to ride down there on that Saturday night. But we're looking forward to that. Friday's a big day, busy day there. Saturday's a busy day there as far as breakout sessions for you new folks. I don't know what your schedules are, but if you have any questions about that, please feel free to ask in anticipation of that. Dr. Stricker, you look like you were going to mention something.
Yeah, is it possible to get the dates for those meetings at the schools and the times of those?
Do you want me to put them on your calendar?
You talking about the
Great.
community,
That'd be
the
great.
open house kind of
Community
things?
forums,
Yeah,
right.
community forums, yeah.
About the MSBA, did I see that somebody's presenting? We
Yes.
two of our-
So good, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, we submitted 2 proposals last spring. They both got approved. One is about our meet confer issues process, which is very atypical for school systems to have such a collaborative process. So we will be making a presentation for that. And then and Eric Dunn will also come down as a teacher rep to present. And then the other presentation is our board self-eval process. And John Yurkovich is actually going to be down there. He doesn't want to be involved in the presentation, but he will be in the room if people look for contributions. So what I will do is I'm going to work on, and I talked to David and Amy about this, about drafting a kind of a draft presentation, and then figure out who would like to maybe share a slide or two if you have any thoughts related. I'll get it to you in advance. Their suggestion was not to have too many people present because it just gets a little bit choppy if we've got everybody chiming in. So I'll work with them to kind of figure out who jumps in. But typically, unless there's something you really want to see, board members have attended those. So I'll put that on your schedule if I haven't. They're both on Friday.
Oh, so I was going to ask if you had.
They're both on Friday.
They're both on Friday, okay.
We kind of asked for that date because more people are there, so wanted a bigger audience. Yeah. Luckily, they agreed. So.
Excellent. And for new board members or newer board members, we have had various presentations that the district has been involved in the past, including our, for lack of a better, the School for Today presentations before. We've had other ones that we have presented. And again, I'll mention the fact that we saw the one about the student advisors on the board, and that was kind of the impetus to eventually bring in our own on. So there was always very, very good breakout sessions, and we'll do everything we can to make ours as quite as interesting as they're looking forward to. I'm sure we'll have quite a few people, especially at the meet and confer one, because a lot of districts don't do it the way we do, and those that do are not nearly as successful as what we have been fortunate to be over the years with that. So I'm sure we'll get a lot of questions.
And I would think too, back when we were kind of thinking about our board self-eval process too, it's the same thing. There are a lot of boards, I'll say nearby us, that don't go through a self-eval process, and none that I at least know of that do it like us. And people when I kind of was reaching out to see how do you guys do this, they were very interested in our process and thought it sounded fantastic. So I think those sessions will generate a lot of interest, and we'll be prepared for
I
it.
actually had just a side note, I had a friend of mine who serves on a school board in Illinois, at a district just across the river. And he has just been pumping me left and right with information about that self-eval process, because they don't. And he said, I think it's to our detriment that we don't do that, because I think it's something that would really build an opportunity for people to have open, honest discussion amongst themselves to say, I think this works really well, I don't like this when this happens, or this is the way I felt, you know, am I right in feeling that way, am I not, you know, what are your feelings about it? And I have found that our process has been very, very, very good over the years. And it's nice because everybody participates, and that's what makes it worthwhile.
Yeah.
So, we'll move along then. If anybody has any other calendar issues, just a quick reminder that if you're liaisons to schools, we obviously don't have traditional open houses this year to attend on one given night. But if you want to keep your school that you're a liaison to, keep their PTO meetings near or dear to your schedule. If you can make maybe one each semester, that would be really good. If you're a member or a liaison to a community, may want to get in touch with the folks that your alderman or councilman in that particular jurisdiction to find out when they meet. And if you're looking for some talking points or whatever, I'm sure Kathy and John could provide you some talking points that if you get a chance to have a few minutes in front of those boards, it's really, really good to, you know, I'm good about bragging on our district, so it's usually not too hard for me to find stuff to talk about at Shrewsbury and where I'm the liaison. So we'll move on to the opening of school update. Dr. Simpson.
Some of the different celebrations have been shared. You guys did a great job. I'm going to kind of proceed through my slides, not speaking to each and every one, but talking to them. Just some highlights before school started. It was a great elementary summer school experience. These are some pictures. Oh, thank you. These are some pictures from our experience, and again, kudos to John Thomas and all the administrators and teachers and staff who worked in all of our settings to make it a relevant, meaningful learning experience for our kids. Also, highlighting in this one some of the summer learning for our adults. Our district has always done a hallmark of our district, and we've won a state award for it, has been our professional learning or professional development. But the summer is the time when we're able to dedicate a significant amount of time at a lower cost too, because we don't have to pay for substitutes for our teachers to engage in learning. And so while some can't access that opportunity for different reasons, whether they travel, whether it's a child care situation, we also work to try and find barriers to that this summer, to overcome barriers to that this summer. It is a really meaningful time. So here just are a few of the highlights. Steve mentioned the new teacher orientation, and I kind of just list here some of the content that the teachers, because you'll see it's quite a variety when you talk about all that's being learned by our teachers. It speaks to the complexity of teaching children today and creating an environment for them today. We had a collaboration with Edgar Road and Clark staffs around the workshop approach, which is really just how to have small and large group instruction, small group being more focused on the needs of the children, whatever those needs may be, whether it's specific skill base, whether it's something remedial, whether it's enrichment. Also, another collaborative effort, which I thought was neat for multiple years now, Chris has partnered with the Kirkwood School District to bring together our two teachers. So this particular effort this summer was working on foundational skills as it relates to reading. Edgar Road teachers here are just kind of exploring spaces with one another and just kind of learning from one another's environments. That right there is Nicholas Kirschman, who's a high school teacher. We've had it should be STEAM conference where different educators from not just the district but from around the region come together to learn STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And there, Nicholas is leading a session for educators on design thinking. The staff at Steger Gibbons engaged in some anti-racist, anti-bias training to start the year. Joe mentioned the restorative circles. This is something, the Avery staff was in a circle, again, learning how to implement that. intruder training. John Thomas worked on intruder training with Steer Givens today. This is from Bristol, certainly relevant to what we saw last week. Cam and Bob, those are our two SROs, go around to each of the buildings and work with them on an intruder training, what to do in those situations. Keita and I had an opportunity to some team building at the start of the year. This was Hickson. They did an amazing race type thing where they went all over the our district community. They went to Webster Rock Hill Ministries. They went to Novel Neighbor, and it was all purposeful, intentional. It was fun, but also to learn about all the different resources within our community. And then there's Susan Bergman working with math tutors. So a lot of learning of the children and the adults going on. And we're a learning organization, so that should always be priority number one. A lot of summer projects. Kudos to Matt, kudos to Rob, who had the projects. With Rob being out for a substantial period of time, Matt took the lead on a lot of the projects. Bruce overseeing. This is, if you haven't been to Hickson yet, I know some of you have, Arnold referenced, and I know some of you did too. The flooring and some of the painting that's been done there has totally livened up the place quite a bit. They're really excited about that. The other thing, this was Bill Senti tweeted this. He's like, no, it's not a new pool at Bristol Elementary. It's a beautifully waxed, multiple wax floor. And so he was giving props to the custodians for their efforts to do that. So huge props to our custodians, our grounds, our maintenance, and all of our facility techs for their work.
Hey, John, how long had that carpet been down at Hickson?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Too
Do
long.
you remember it? Yeah, too long. Too long.
1956.
You recall walking on that carpet as a
Green
student?
carpet, yes. Anyway, sorry.
Christine mentioned the back to school barbecue, which is always a great event. Major kudos to the different people that played a part in that, including our fire department and our police force that always bring their vehicles, engage with kids. The police force this year had a tug of war with a group of kids. Got a shot. Our administrators always have an incredible presence there. I mean, 20 plus, probably at least 20 administrators there from the district and the building were present on the grill, serving our community hot dogs and such. That's a picture of my little dude there. Major kudos also to the Webster Groves Public Parks and Rec, because they brought a bunch of games and played a bunch of games, organized games for people. Steve referenced the opening day. Again, kudos to the group that put together IDA, which Chris was one of the leaders of. It was very fun. First few days of school, the place to be, as Joe said, Bristol Elementary, a lot of bubbles. First few days of school, Julie Power, who's our ELSA specialist, always spends time with our OASIS volunteers over the course of the year. OASIS volunteers are intergenerational tutors that work with children primarily focused on literacy. They normally spend about an hour a week with children. Julie kind of provides them with some guidance as to how to work with children, many of whom are struggling readers. Some of them come as retired teachers, so they have a little bit more background and skill-based than others, and it's a meaningful opportunity. Again, welcoming high school, a lot of welcoming around the district. I included this one of Will. Will is a teacher at Avery Elementary last year. I showed that in my presentation when I looked. His son's attending the Ambrose Center this year. So taking the pics, father and son. Again, different experiences at different schools, all from the first week of school. I won't read about all of them. You can see what those are. Enrollment, I included in your packet just kind of a current overall enrollment. After our September enrollment, so we submit official data and records. Well, DESE's collecting everything because that's how we get paid is through our core data and enrollment. But the final Wednesday in September is a big date where we submit an official record. I'll provide you with a detailed enrollment report on everything. Certainly that has a lot of relevance. I'll have the data in advance because we're going to be doing all the work with the enrollment study. but I'll give you a little bit more data, get you it broken down soon. But you saw that enrollment. Here's just kind of the summary. First day student enrollment was up at 5 of our schools. It was up at 7 of our schools last year. This was in Charles Coffron's projections. He projected a little bit of a dip this year before we started moving up in our resident enrollment. But this is our total enrollment. So at those schools, enrollment is up. Overall district enrollment, and you'll see here also I included Walter Ambrose Family Center, so it's just not K-12, is down approximately 9 students from last year. So again, our trend line continues a pretty steep ascent, gradual steep, I don't know, but we dropped a few students as of first day of school. The other thing that I put on here also is that currently we have 3 students in our district that are attending on a residency transfer, or a residency waiver was probably the better language. We last year collected a lot of kind of data and broke it down based on categories. One thing that we discovered, and that I've recently discovered some other districts do that probably shouldn't be, is we were grouping students together that we shouldn't have been. So a student that's here on a residency waiver is a child who lives in the district, but their parents don't live in the district. And it's a little bit more broken down. Our board policy explains it really well. We were grouping with these particular students children that live in the district with their parents, but may not, and are proving residency, but they may not be the person on the rental agreement or on like the mortgage, some of our more traditional forms of residency. So we had communicated, I will say that I had communicated even to some community members that we had a total of 95 residency waivers last year. I communicated it to you. When we finally got clarity and we separated them to where they need to be separated, John and did a lot of work. We realized currently, still to this day, because I verified today from the start of the year, we have 3 students that are here on a residency waiver. Those residency waivers will be reviewed on a regular basis with these particular students. And so I just felt that because of giving some misinformation, I take responsibility for that. I wanted to make sure that we publicly clarified that. Some other celebrations, then I'll entertain any questions that you have.
I was just gonna,
Sure.
since it's on this right now, and John, you may be able to address this. Do we still have students from any other districts that are as a result of DESE accreditation issues or anything like that? Because I know.
Yes, that'll be part of my report that I do as part of the transfer student.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yeah, let me share that.
I will defer to them.
Yeah. So some of the other celebrations from the start of school, we now have the technology and capabilities to have through like a PayPal, it's called RevTrack, to have families that have credit cards or debit cards to get in. We have the capabilities to help have them pay for things such as food expenses, field trips, fines, fees, bus passes, athletic. And so we're working to establish that for district-based fees, but we also have, bless you, we also have the capabilities for schools to be able to upload things as well. So for example, if Givens is having a field trip, they're going to the zoo, we have the ability, the technology to put that into a system where parents could just go there and pay online. So we're starting it, it's in its infancy, and so you can expect more from that.
Can I ask, will that be for Ambrose fees as well?
Yes.
It'll be online then?
Yes.
Eventually?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, it'll be very,
My parents very happy.
very happy. Back to school registration, while we have processed some of the kinks, some of the things that we need to attend to, overall the back to school registration has been received with a lot of positive feedback. So what that was is instead of parents showing up and getting 20 papers from a school for district related things that they had to sign, we did something electronically where they could do it electronically. Certainly, we know that there are some that don't have electronic access, and there's different things that we learned along the way. So we're still getting paper copies in people's hands. We're creating, kiosks and giving support at schools to help people. But overall, it's been received favorably. We reached out to the Fox School District, who is further down the road with us. We learned from them. Their first year, they had 20% of families complete the online process. We had about 50 families this year, 50%, 20%, 50%. So again, we're learning it, and it'll get better. Along that same line, we centralized our enrollment, and the plans still at this point are to continue doing that. By that, we mean we're having people come to our school, our district, this office, to register their kids for enrollment in our district for the first time. This is allowing for a consistency in process. It's also allowing for consistency with how data is being entered. Because you provide training, you provide support, but sometimes in the moment it looks a little bit different, with all in good faith. So again, John's team dedicated a tremendous amount of time to this process. We learned how we can do it better next time. We learned how we can just better communication between the district and the schools through the process. But overall, it was a huge win, and we're going to look to, again, do it again next year.
Because previously they would go to their quote-unquote resident school or their home school.
Right. Which again, one of the things that we talked about is they still have to go to the school for certain things. So it's almost an extra step for them. But again, having a centralized process really worked.
Cleans up the data and everything and the processing itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another big celebration is due to your decision last year, the board's decision to capture the funding for students, a certain number of students who receive free and reduced lunch. We have more children on free and reduced lunch this year who are able to access early child education at the Walter Ambrose Family Center. So I think we can still try and seek out more ways to do that. But certainly we have more children doing it this year than we ever have through the decisions that you made. And I'll leave it at that as far as the celebrations. But any questions or any comments that you have?
Another question.
Sure.
What I was thinking about was the after school before care. Will that eventually be online too, the payment for that?
It could be. I mean, Joanne has said, like Adventure Club.
Yeah,
Yes.
they can pay online now.
Oh, they can?
Yeah, I pay online.
Oh, good.
You just
And
get
that
it
wasn't
in
as of
a
last
second.
year, right?
No, I paid on last year too. I paid on last year.
Okay.
So we'll work on communicating about that, reinforcing that you can do that.
Drive a check over there.
Okay?
Okay, excellent. Well, you're still on, John, because we've got the portrait or profile of a graduate.
Yeah, and I didn't change the language, and it's kind of, depends on who you ask, profile or portrait. But one of the things that I wanted to bring to you all is the decision that I'm making. So initially, you'll remember that we initiated some processes for 2 RFPs actually for strategic planning, and we put something out for enrollment in space. And one of the things that, we didn't get a lot. We only got one proposal back for strategic planning. But one of the things that I had been toying with and speaking with some of my colleagues and professionals was creating the idea of a profile of a graduate. And Arnold, it reminded me of the statement that you made at our team building activity about we got to decide what do we want for these kids in the end. You know, like when we start talking about we wanting kids to be able to skills we want them to have, maybe performance we want them to demonstrate, health and well-being, like what do we want for our kids when they walk out for the school system? Still with the respective individual differences, and kids are different, we know that, but overall, what would our ideal graduate walk from us possessing? So what the idea that I have, and I'll talk to you about a partnership, is to spend some time early this fall developing this profile of this graduate. And as I say here, working backwards in order to move forwards. So why do we start with this creating of a profile? First of all, it clarifies what our school community's vision, because it will be a collaborative process. What is the vision that we have for our young people upon graduation? And thus, of course, what does that look like leading up to? So if we establish what the outcome look like, how do what we're doing in schools with our children demonstrate that from the youngest age? Also, it will allow us to better align our efforts, including how we act strategically, to move towards those characteristics in a more purposeful way. So I think everything that we do is intended to be for the good of kids. But if we can come to a consensus as to we want them walking out with these competencies, with these beliefs, with these mindsets, then we could develop what are our priorities and what are our actions from our youngest learners to our old to move towards that profile. What are we demonstrating to move towards that profile? So how do we go about creating this? First of all, we have to make sure that every level and every stage that we have a diverse group of people at the table offering their thoughts and feedback along the way to this particular profile. So the idea is to have a leadership team of diverse stakeholders that engages in some level of study of what the profile should look like and what education should look like in order to lead us towards what we want from our graduates upon graduation. Develop a draft profile of what this looks like. Again, I mentioned skills, habits of mind, literacies. That group would also have a recommendation ultimately to the board, who would be the final endorsers. But then also having the space for open and community-wide stakeholder contribution to the drafts that are created. So while you have one group that's kind of the work team, you open it up to the entire community to contribute thoughts and feedback to, and then it goes back to that leadership team for final draft, finalization, if you will. I list here collaboration with the Clayton School District. Sean presented to the board, his board on Saturday. He's the superintendent. The collaboration, his hopes for a collaboration with the district. They're going to be going through the same process in terms of profile and then developing strategies coming back from what that profile looks like. We talked about, wouldn't that be powerful? So we're working on designing processes that we think would be good for implementation in our districts, but then also talking about how can we bring our districts together somehow as a part of this process. Just to demonstrate that if we want our children to be able to leave our school system being able to interact with other people, then let's be districts that bring each other together as part of our process that we're trying to model. Modeling what we expect from our graduates possible. And so looking to do that particular work. Again, how do we use the profile? If we create a profile and it just becomes just like a template, or it becomes a picture that we put in schools, but we don't act intentionally and thoughtfully towards it, well then it's just a really neat picture. So it really comes back to, once we create it, how are we thoughtfully and actively and purposefully moving towards those characteristics? So that is the stage that comes next. And again, those are some of the things. Certainly our community would be involved, but then we also bring together the people to develop action plans for moving towards those particular characteristics of the profile. Again, you will also, the Board of Education will be the ultimate authorization on both the profile as well as the actions that are developed. Okay? I included in here, and this is in your materials, you may have had a chance to look at this, some of the sample profiles from other school systems. I tried to include as diverse a group of profiles as possible. Some are much more specific, some are more general, some are more, what I would say, graphically appealing than others. Again, it's kind of hard to see.
Some are less graphically appealing.
Yeah, right. So really what I wanted to do tonight is just kind of, when I asked Amy and David, was just just get your reaction from it, is really what I'm looking for. This is a particular district, yeah, and they break it down a little bit more. So just any reactions that you have.
Have you
Okay.
considered, as far as diversity is concerned, working with other districts that aren't quite so much like ours? Like perhaps Ferguson, Florissant, or
Yeah,
another district that doesn't look
yeah.
like ours?
It's good. It's a good
You're
point,
gonna deal
Keita.
with real world.
Yeah, we could certainly. The only partnership with Clayton is they were doing the exact same process at this time, but we could certainly open up. So, like one of our ideas was, you know, do we collaborate on a nighttime where we bring together people in industry and workforces to talk about what are skills that people need, our graduates need when they are entering at this moment. So we're not looking to kind of engage in the process with them along the way, but have like one meeting maybe where we come together. But there would be nothing to say that we couldn't invite anybody to, like that, for example. Great point. Yeah.
Would this be a substitution as strategic plan?
This would be I see it as like the starting point.
Okay,
This is what we're going to start with, and then from this we create the strategic plan.
okay,
Immediately following.
okay.
Yeah. But at least we have that starting point, and then strategically develop plans for how we move towards it. Yeah.
I agree with wholeheartedly with one of the points you made, which was it shouldn't just be a picture on a wall, and it shouldn't just be something that, you know, like almost like a growth chart kind of thing. I mean, it's like you really want it to mean something. You really want it to have action items.
Yeah.
You really want to be able to respond if someone is not getting to those bullet points.
Yeah.
It would be a nice mix of something like this, which is the last one that you have up, which is very comprehensive as far as in depth, whereas a couple before, it was just kind of buzzwords.
Yeah.
And that to me would be more of a marketing picture
Yeah.
versus a true actionable document,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Comments from that side?
I think it makes sense to have your outcomes so that you can make your strategic plans. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great effort.
I don't envision this process taking extraordinarily long. My vision is, you know, maybe, I don't want to put a time frame out there, but I could see us finalizing this sometime and possibly sometime in November, early December. We could do it aggressively. I mean, we could do it pretty quickly, and then immediately starting in on the planning aspects.
You could certainly fall into the trap of spending 6 months just wordsmithing.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's
you don't want to do that.
That's a goal. And some of us have lived through a process where we probably spent too much time. I think we spent 2 years on the last plan, and it was just a lot of time that probably just the design of it. There's a way to get stakeholder input. There's a way to who are the people that are going to wordsmith. So just from the design, being thoughtful of how we involve people, and I think we could be much more efficient without lacking substance.
Well, and you can certainly lose momentum if you
You
stretch it out too far.
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of experienced that,
Yeah.
not specifically to the strategic plan, but
Yeah.
for some things that occasionally, if you stretch it out too far, then, you know, you lose that. Your first meeting is 25 people and your last meeting is 6.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Keita?
I see this as an opportunity for our student leaders as well, especially once you get into the strategic
Mm-hmm.
point of view, because a lot of times adults' idea of
Totally.
what should be and their idea is something totally different. So if it's going to be something that would hold their interest,
Yeah.
that would get them excited about getting to these different points,
Absolutely.
I think that's a good opportunity for you guys to step in.
I think absolutely, if that's, even to present some of these examples to them and say, hey, highlight some of the ones that say, yes, this is on point, or this does not make sense for me. you know, because you're living it right now. And it's like, you're partway there, essentially, you're halfway through your high school career, but you can look back to what you did all along and say, was I doing the things that are going to help me get there? Where am I at now compared to a lot of these bullet points that do make sense for us? So, and that's a great point, Keita. Thank you for bringing that up.
I wonder too if there's an opportunity to partner or to at least seek feedback from like the Parent Advisory Council and maybe the Equity in Education or the Webster Equity Bridge,
All great choices.
parent groups. But I like the idea too, like Joe said, thinking about our outcomes, visually representing that, and then strategic planning towards it.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
We'll move along, Mr. Thomas. We have, we're moving along to item 7, bullet point 01, or section 01, transfer student update.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you had a good day.
Sorry, I jumped the gun earlier with
That's
my
okay.
question.
Stole
I
my
knew this was
thunder.
coming, and I should have remembered that, so.
It's such an exciting report, Steve. I know you're waiting all night for it. Jessica and Patrick, welcome. Nice to have you part of the group. So yes, I'd like to share with you the annual report of students who are attending as part of the transfer program. And I will start with our students who attend as part of the voluntary transfer program, which is coordinated by the Voluntary Interdistrict Choice Corporation, commonly referred to as VIC. We have been with this program since its inception, and we continue to gain from our students who attend, who reside in the city of St. Louis. And we are currently at the end, school year is the end of the current 5-year cycle. And then a few years ago, the VIC board approved another 5-year cycle, which will begin next year. So at the bottom of the table that I provided to you, you can kind of see how the numbers will play out during the 5-year extension. You see the number 4 on the far left-hand side of the column. That will be the number of new students that we will accept into the program annually during that 5-year period. We will determine where those students attend based on where we have space availability. Currently, 2 of those 4 spots will be for Gibbons Elementary. We have 2 kindergarten spots reserved there for our voluntary transfer students, and then 2 others, again, will be based on space availability. So while students are with us during the 5-year extension and even afterwards, if the program sunsets, they will be able to remain with us until they either leave us or until they graduate, which I assume most of them will, because we have a really good retention rate with students who are in the program.
And just a reminder that the 4 students all were allotted. And so in recent history, the board has said, like, if we can have additional students, that's if a district, so Vic says you can have 4, and then we can say, well, we'll take 4 or we'll take 2. And so in the past, the board has said if we can have additional students, we'd be interested in taking additional students, but we for sure want to take our maximum.
Yeah, and also our practice is if we have a resident family who we're aware of is moving into the city of St. Louis and they're in our zone, which is zone 3, that's the part of the city that's designated for our school district, we allow them to continue with us. We just kind of change their enrollment status from a resident student to the voluntary transfer status. So we like to keep our families.
But they do have to be in the zone.
Yes, they have to be in the zone, yes. And then the other students who are attending with us are those who are attending with us from Riverview and from Normandy who are formally unaccredited. And so right now we have 9 students who reside in those school districts. Just a handful in Riverview, and the larger majority of them are in the Normandy School District. And then as part of their transition back to their school, when it's a natural transition with us, for instance, when children finish 5th grade and then go on to 6th grade, they will then return to their home school district. And likewise, if we have an 8th grader, when a current 8th grader when they're finished with middle school, and they will transition back to their home school district.
So the 9 is broken out, 7 Normandy and 2 Riverview currently?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And just a reminder, the board and Keita and Christina, I don't think you all were here at that time, but there were agreements with those 2 districts in terms of the students and when they transition back. And a big part of that, again, is thinking regionally, because the cost that these school districts, it's a lot of funding that they lose when their children leave. And so part of it is to support these school districts while still, supporting the kids. So I applaud Riverview and Normandy for not just saying we want them back right away, being thoughtful about an intent, a purposeful transition for the kids. So.
Any questions?
No, just an observation, John. You made the comment about retention, especially of the voluntary transfer students. I'm always curious because visual and the math side of me, is following those numbers down, and diagonally, obviously, as the year progresses, that number moves down. And it is good to see that, that 9 stayed at 9, and even went up to 11, 12, 11, kind of diagonally moving down. I don't see big drops. And that means, luckily, the kids are enjoying their time here, they're learning, they're getting the benefit of being here, and we're obviously, we reap the benefits too of having them here, because that's just it just adds something to have another student there that can provide a different outlook on their world versus maybe some of our residents' kids.
Yeah. And each year, this year, our numbers are a little bit down what they probably should have been, but like for instance, this year we had one family who used to participate in this program who moved into our school district. So we kept those kids, but now they're resident kids. We also had a family that came upon some unfortunate times, and they're continuing to attend under McKinney-Vento provision. So again, we didn't lose them even though they were formerly part of this program. They're just with us under another classification.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Moving on to enrollment space, since we're talking about kids and where we put them and everything.
Yeah. So what I have for you tonight is we had submitted out, following our discussion in June, we kind of talked about, having somebody, throwing around the idea of having somebody come in and help facilitate our process. We got a really important process that we're going to undergo here in the school district, and one that could certainly have pretty lasting effects on a number of people for a number of years. I won't go over, I kind of created some notes here to stay on point because I could talk for a while on this, but certainly our projections continue to go up in the district. We've responded to the increase in enrollment by being really good about utilizing our space in schools. We've had to shift instructional spaces from classrooms to really decorating some nice closets, having people that are under stairwells. So we've made a lot of provisions in ways that we try to really help kids don't notice, or other people don't notice. And our staffs have done a really good job with that. We've also at Clark, Edgar Road, and Avery added modular units. I was a principal at Hudson when we had a modular unit, and there was a big celebration at Hudson and other schools when those modulars went away. Of course, the modulars came back. We added a second one at Edgar Road. Our enrollment there continues to go up, and we're projected that we will have to add, if we keep things constant as far as class size and other factors, possibly 1 to 2 more modulars. Which, as you know, when you add the modulars, you're taking away space from the property. So we're kind of shrinking what was traditionally the playground space on the concrete, and we're moving into grassier spaces where we didn't have children playing before necessarily. We shared update on enrollment and stuff in January. We had a group that came together in the spring, really just to look at what other enrollment data information did we have. It wasn't a fact-finding or a problem-solving group. It was just, what's the data, what's the information, can we find anything else? Ultimately, like I said, we made the decision, as Bruce and I thought about it, to put out a request for proposal for a group to see is there somebody that could come in and support us with this work. The reason that we did that is, first of all, one, the benefit of having somebody who's not employed by us listening to and hearing community feedback as they talk about everything related to our enrollment processes. So not just looking at numbers, looking at policies, looking at practices, and all the things that relate to enrollment. Community awareness and engagement is going to be essential to our process. It's going to be essential to any solutions that we propose. The company whose proposal we're recommending proposing tonight, in their proposal quoted that we believe in a transparent process that includes opportunities for community feedback on many fronts, a combination of online and in-person presentations supported by a comprehensive project website and includes online surveys and frequently asked question page ensures that all the information is accessible, and this is vital to the process. Connected with a superintendent who had them lead a process. I've gotten really good reference checks, and they've led sessions with as many as 800 to 900 people, and not in some contentious settings, and have done so very professionally and done a really good job with that. And so we think one thing that I've told people that we know, that I've told people anecdotally, we're not starting with an end. There's no end in mind. There is no this is what our decision is already made. Now let's just invite people in and try and sell our decision, or let's just invite people in to say we had community input. We legit have no end in mind. Now, of course, we're educators, we live it, so we've thought you could do this, or maybe you could do this, but there is honestly no end in mind. And so we want to make sure we communicate that. The priorities that we've had and what we kept in the forefront is what you shared in June, is that coming up with something, as you engage in this work that's good for kids, it's fiscally responsible, and you also said don't take anything off the table in terms of solutions. Another reason we went with initiating an RFP process is that although we didn't see it as absolutely essential in terms of a characteristic of a vendor, after we reviewed those that were submitted, we recognized that there's a huge value in having somebody who's done this, and specifically also somebody who has technology and technical expertise to help us, especially as we look at and evaluate solutions. So while we have data, while we have information regarding to enrollment, we also don't have the expertise that the people we're recommending to you tonight have, or the technology to vet our proposals, both what they would look like short-term or what they would look like long-term. Also related to that expertise, the firm that we're recommending to you tonight has legitimate, solid experience doing this in 47 and 50 states and also globally. So they come to our process having learned how to run a process, having heard what solutions look like in other places. And as they have said and they've articulated in their proposal, not just some solutions that are capital, that take money, but also non-capital based solutions that are creative. And while they're not the ones that are solving our problem, they're working with us to solve our problem based on what we prioritize. The fact that they've done this, they have a reputation for doing this, they can think of things that we may not just think of. And then they have the technology to be like, what would this look like if we took our fifth graders, I'm just throwing this out, if we removed our fifth graders from our schools and we put them someplace else, what would that look like short and long term from a data perspective? They have the technology to be able to do that very quickly. And the last point, the reason why we went this route is that like I said, it's an important decision for our community, and so they have this particular expertise. There is a level to, while we could go on, while we could just increase class sizes which may be a solution we decide upon. We know, like at Edgar Road, we're continuing to fill. So there is a level of, while we're not going to rush a process to get to a deadline, we do have some level of urgency. We know that. And so to be able to have a group that comes in who has facilitated these process, who can help guide us and get the work done, while we have plenty of other goals that you have for us, that we have for us, that we certainly know last week is evident that things happen in the school district. It's very dynamic. So we could have something we set out to do for the week, and all of a sudden something happens, and for the next 2 to 3 days we're dealing with something else. That with this facilitator, we can keep the work moving forward. We'll still be involved in it, we'll still be helping co-lead it, but we can keep moving this work forward in a timely and thoughtful manner. So we put out the RFP July 18th, proposals due the 13th. We reviewed the proposals, and after reviewing the proposals through a rubric and discussion, we brought back 2 vendors for an interview. One was a local firm called Stratcom RX. It's a communication, PR, and marketing company that is a really solid local company. Again, major focus is on communication, marketing, and public relations. They certainly have a lot of experience facilitating processes, engaging public, and trying to come at consensus or synthesize information from a public gathering. Strong communication. Cooperative Strategies was the other one. They're this larger company that specializes in financial and demographic planning. It's all education based, their company is. Among their words, like I said, they facilitate these processes around the country with proven track record of, again, both capital, non-capital based solutions. The head of the particular project, so they have different, they have a headquarters, but then they have different places around the country. They're based out of Ohio. The lead, Scott Leopold, has developed himself, and I'm just going to read it so I don't screw it up, a unique space utilization methodology that displays room use, allocation, enrollment by period for facilities based on schedules. He's also, in the past 5 years, toured over 250 schools for the purpose of studying enrollment capacities and what you could do with spaces. Again, I mentioned technical expertise. While we didn't lay this out as an essential element of the process, when you hear them talk and you see the technology that they have, I can tell you, Bruce, our incredible numbers statistician, to not feel the burden of having to be the numbers person on this project as he works on other projects. He was really excited about it. And lastly, as we looked at all the proposals that came in, locally as well as not locally, they were also the least costly of all the proposals. So tonight what we're doing is we're looking to to approve the proposal from Cooperative Strategies to facilitate this particular process for the fee that's laid out, the $45,500. That includes their travel expenses. Those are not add-ons to the travel expenses. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or related.
Did they come into the process after you gathered the information from the forums, or are they part of the forums?
So they will probably, for cost reasons, not be at all the forums. So we're going to involve them right away. So if they are approved, the first thing that we have is a plan for a planning work session, where we meet with them for a day to talk about everything related to the project, including what this timeline. So what they say here is that understanding of the mission and function of the school district, discuss approach. The plan for the planning work session is held to ensure that expectations of the project are understood and there's consensus on the process to be implemented. We will discuss roles, functions, responsibilities, anticipated issues, and prepare for the project rollout. So my thought, again, from a cost perspective, is that they wouldn't be a part of that, but that we would be collecting the information and they would be helping us synthesize the information that's left.
And they're helping you understand what to.
Right. And so they do lay out in their proposal, again, how they are going to work with the committee as part of this. Their proposal is a little bit of shift where they strongly encourage having focus groups so that you're hearing from different groups of people in terms of what they think about it. They also have a strong online survey. What are all the ways that we can engage the public and collect information from them? Yeah.
So they're really, just to kind of clarify, they're going to look at space utilization, current, future situation. They're not going to say, gee, you need to add 15 classrooms here, or, it's just going to say you don't have space here, or here's some space that you could utilize if you think about that, or change your schedule, and this would accommodate the enrollment that's there, stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay.
So they are going to, yes, all of what you just said. And they're going to help work with us, like what do we prioritize? They're going to help with maybe options development. What are options? You're not using this, you could be using this space a lot better. They're not coming in to just, here's all the information and data, and then unilaterally make the decision of this is what you need to do. They're not doing that. But they do have an expertise, so they can, for example, when they did a, I'm happy to share this with anybody, but they've worked with one particular school district called the Fort Bend Independent School District. And so they looked at, as they were looking at solution, they look at both capital ones. So do you add on here, and this is the cost, and this is what it would look like. But they also looked at non-capital ones. And the examples here, the district also explored non-capital solutions to increasing high school's capacity, such as staggered schedules, split shifts, online courses, and dual enrollment. So not just, and then what are the effect on those? What are the projected effect on enrollment? So they come with a lot of expertise, and as we listen to them talk, you just got excited and have a lot of confidence in them.
Do they delve into some of the potential redistricting issues, or is that something that would be kept kind of outside of the scope?
Absolutely, absolutely. So they will have the ability, and again, they're coming in. They've learned a lot about the process, but they have the capabilities. So, for example, if that becomes something, a viable solution, they have the technology where they can pretty quickly manipulate things, and this would be the effect on enrollment. This is what it looked like if you wanted to accomplish this. So, for example, I won't give any examples.
Well,
but
from various stages of, the smallest tweaks gives you this result.
Right.
The medium,
Yeah.
somewhere gives you this result.
Yes.
The drastic,
Yeah,
completely redo everything, gives you this result.
absolutely, absolutely.
What kind of time frame? Like, how long does this process take?
Well, that was one of the things. When you see the thoroughness of the plan and everything that they developed, one of our initial thoughts were, okay, do they know that we're set a draft timeline for November? Because what happens, just for, again, what the original thought was, is that this group works on and engages the public in these levels of processing, but then it also goes through building advisory, it goes through finance advisory, it goes through some different groups, including community, before it ultimately reaches you. Now, they include in their process, like if we want to include updates to the board on certain things, certainly I will be updating you, but if you want to be more involved earlier, you can be more involved. So we still have the deadline for a November deadline. One thing that I told them is that we don't want to, because this is going to could have a lasting effect. Like if we're in this and we feel like we need more more time. We don't want to like hold firm and fast to the November deadline. We don't want it to drag on and out.
Right.
We won't, you know, I mean, that would come with possibly increased cost that we would have to make decisions on. But we don't want to say, well, it's got to be November, you know? And so they appreciated that, and they were thinking the same thing, again, having facilitating these conference things all over the country.
Does that time frame allow for you to have enough stakeholder input from various people to schedule that, get that data accumulated and then off to them
Yeah.
as well?
They feel so. Again, maybe the November is a little bit of aggressive, but when we talked about focus groups, he talked about what they will often do with school districts is they will come into the district for like 3 days, and let's set up meetings. So if you want the meeting to be, you know, a group of people who are senior citizens. A group of people, you know, we'll design who are the groups of people. Maybe if you start talking, you know, attendance areas, maybe you bring up people that live in a particular region together. So it's not just, let's just not get focus groups and who wants to come. It's being really purposeful and who are the people that we need to hear from. And then we'll come in for an extensive period of time. We'll facilitate those, and we'll synthesize and you know, collect the data and information on what we're hearing from people. Yeah.
Additional comments, questions? So the action item is the approval of the proposal.
It's listed there. Yeah.
Right. So would someone like to make a motion to approve the proposal from Cooperative Strategies?
I move that the Webster Grove School District Board of Education approve the proposal from Cooperative Strategies to facilitate our enrollment space process for a fee of $45,500, which includes reimbursable travel expenses.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you very much, John. I'm excited to see that process hit the ground running, so, yeah, very good. Kathy Vesperini, we have communication survey updates.
Yes. Hello?
Hello.
Okay. Yes, I have a brief update here. As you recall, we promised that once we reviewed the results that we'd come back with and let you know some of the next steps that we're taking based on the results we got from the communications survey. So I will go through these, and then if you have any questions, we'd be happy to talk to you about them. One of the things we're going to do, and have been doing, is be very explicit about pointing out to the public their opportunities to contribute to decisions being made. And if you've seen some of the ads that we've been running for our forums, their headline is, "This is your opportunity to contribute to the decision-making process." And we will continue doing that, not just for the forums, but as we move along through the year and have other types of activities and plans. We have other additional surveys, including a wellness survey and a staff survey. I think if you recall that our community survey said people like to respond to us through surveys. The Office of Learning is launching a new blog this year online. We're going to include decision rationales and district communications and school board reports. We're communicating opportunities to be involved through the Webster Kirkwood Times, and that is, for example, the finance and building advisory reps that we're looking for. We're going to increase publicity for the Let's Talk board sessions. Since we have a calendar of when and where, we will get busy with that. And we're going to be very thoughtful regarding the channels we use for communicating with stakeholders. And there'll be more, but this is our initial first steps.
Arnold? Your question about intra-district with, between admin and teachers, that came up several times. Any thoughts on that, or?
Arnold, that's actually the staff survey.
Okay.
So we're going to do like a fall and spring survey.
Okay.
That assesses things like culture, climate, communication, and stuff like that, so that we could get a fall baseline and obviously look to improve it for the spring.
Okay, and the wellness survey will be like health and wellness, or?
Yeah, John, do you want to,
That's
yeah.
wellness.
Yeah, we're meeting tomorrow night to kind of figure out the timing of that. The survey of that timing will not, the timing of that survey will not influence others.
Okay.
As far as the Let's Talk dates, we don't have those on our calendar, but if you want to send those out, and then if anybody, with the next one coming up, we'll probably need to have in the very short
Yeah.
time, decide who's going to be where.
I'll work with Amy and David on that.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
We've mentioned, I think it's in the Webster School District directory that they exist, but once we have dates, we'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they're easy to find, they just weren't on this
No.
particular list, so I just wanted to make sure that we.
Well, they're not,
Get that.
they're not scheduled yet.
Right.
We haven't scheduled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
I want to say, speaking of communication, the website, the change of the website has been helpful. I know many times, and this is not a diss on anybody in technology, but many times the people who set websites up aren't the people who navigate them, the general public kind of things. And if we can make things as, not as, don't make it busy, because sometimes when it's busy and you're trying to add a lot of things, it gets too complicated. But to make it very simple to find things. But I appreciate the change of the website, and it's just getting a different look and knowing where things are located.
Yeah.
That's great. Pat Weaver and Tim Brown and I did extensive interviewing as we set the thing up. And I think
And if
that
there's
paid off.
any feedback, I mean, we asked for feedback from people too on this. I mean, they did an amazing job, but we're making tweaks
Yeah,
as we.
go.
Well, I know those things are very, very difficult to transition.
Yeah.
And kudos to you guys for getting it accomplished. It's
Thank
not
you.
easy.
Outstanding. Thank you, Kathy, appreciate that. We now come to our second opportunity for public comment, so if anybody has additional comments to make or comments,
I've got one. This is the fun story, the celebration.
if
Hi,
you just make sure.
Elissa Sullivan.
There you go. You've done this
There we go.
before,
I've
Alyssa,
done it
thank
before,
you.
Yeah. My oldest started at Hickson this year, and as we all know, middle school can be a time when fraught with emotion and so forth, and I was kind of wondering how that transition would go. And I heard him talking with his friends at the table the other day when he didn't know I could overhear, and he was saying, "Guys, you guys like Hickson? It's my favorite school so far. It's so well organized." And that comment coming from a 12-year-old boy cracked me up. But I just really wanted to celebrate that for you, the board and the administration, because the hiring practices that the board has supported and all of your work in the innovation of hiring, you know, you're stuck in all these systems all the time. And I wanted to bring to you that it really is affecting children, and children really do feel that system. So that was just something nice that happened for us in our house this week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Buck, hello again.
Dave Buck again. As long as I live in this district, I'm going to keep bringing this issue up again and again and again because it's important and it's fallen on deaf ears in the past. I'm not sure it'll fall on deaf ears today, but I'm going to keep doing it. My own history is I played football 3 years in high school. Wasn't bad. Played tight end. Went to state 1 year. This was in Wichita, Kansas. I had my bell rung several times. I was knocked out twice, but you know, they take you off field back then. This was in 1969. And you lie there, you wake up, and then they say, shake it off, and they put you back in. Okay, that's what happened. And luckily, I didn't suffer any concussions. My son-in-law wasn't so lucky. He played high school football in Connecticut. He had a major concussion playing football. And he missed going to college by 2 years because he had to stay home and be kept out. And even today, he's 36 years old, and he still experiences dizzy spells, vertigo, sickness, and he has to stay home from work because of his concussion. Okay? Of all high school concussions, the number one sport by far is football. It's not cross country, it's not swimming, it's not tennis, it's not basketball. It's clearly contact football. But we know a lot more from a neuroscience standpoint about what happens to the brain particularly if it happens to a teenage boy and what goes on into adulthood and what the risk is. Despite advancements in science and medical care and helmets, there are 14,000 high schools in the country who field a football team every year. There are 67,000 reported cases of concussions. I have a really good friend who's the athletic trainer at DeSmet, and I shared Dan these figures, and he said, Dave, they're too low. And the reason is because a lot of concussions go unreported, and some of them get swept under the carpet, okay? Which is just like kind of reality. The thing is, there are high schools and colleges around the country who have banned contact football, and they play touch football and flag football. I've been to those games. It's very, very exciting. I played touch football in college. It's very exciting. There are other things to do other than have kids beat their heads together and risk concussion. So my point is, when a school's job, top job, is to develop kids' brains and minds, why in the hell would you ever put a kid out on the field in a sport where they risk damaging their minds and their heads? It really doesn't make sense. I love the game of football. It was a great experience for me, but it isn't today. That was 50 years ago. It's not today. And if I was a supreme commander of the school district, I would stop contact football and I'd find another alternative. That's my point of view.
Thank you, Mr. Buck. Any additional public comments? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items, starting with 9.02, please.
Make a motion to approve the consent items 9.02, 9.03, 9.04, 9.05, 9.06, 9.07, 9.08.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? None. The motion carries. We will then proceed to item 10, which is the motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion, a second, please. Second. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Probably not. Thank you. We are adjourned.